What's going on, everybody? It's Matt here from East Coast Sabres once again, and today I'm doing the long-awaited review for the TGS, or for those of you that don't know, the Graflex Shop Generation 2 Graflex Flash Replica. And I have to say right off the bat that this is an absolutely beautiful replica. So like all my reviews, we're going to go over the positives, the negatives, start at the top, work our way down, go over everything. I've had this for a few days. I've had a chance to really get inside of it and see how everything is, and we'll go over my thoughts, my opinions. Again, like I've said previously in other videos, I am not the end-all of Graflex experts by any stretch of the imagination. These are simply my thoughts on it as someone who has handled many vintages, and I believe I have worked with every type of replica out there. Not positive, except for the Parks V1. I've never touched a Parks V1. But all of the newer replicas, I think I'm pretty sure I've handled all of them. If this video comes off a little different than some of my other ones, that's because it is about 1 a.m. at the time of filming this, and this is the only time I have available to get this done. So right now, let's get right into it with packaging. We'll go over what you get in the box right out of the gate. So first up is what you're going to get is you're going to get probably a USPS box, and inside of that is going to be this very, very nice take on the actual vintage box that the old Graflex flashes came in. It's a very nice box, semi-gloss finish, vintage Graflex logo on the top, except it's been changed to the Graflex Shop, Missouri, USA, graflexshop.com, with their Facebook website in the bottom. You have a very nice Graflex seal. It's hard to pick up on camera, but very cool. Nothing on the side. On the back, you do get the Graflex Shop on the box. So overall, I always like it when companies ship their products in a nice box. It just adds to the presentation of the product. Maker's Prop Studio has a box similar to this. A lot of replica companies are switching over to these, and I just think it adds a little extra pizzazz to the presentation, and I like that. So opening the box, you get this nice foam, and you get two cards, two business cards, which is nice. I always like to get a business card as well. Again, vintage flash logo, but with the Graflex Shop information. And on the back, you get a cool black and white version, very 30s, 40s. Then you get the standard Graflex Shop business card with the Graflex Bank information. Besides Wonawonga, Graflex Bank is a great place to get information on Graflex history and just various information. And then you have a removable layer of thin foam, and inside we have the Graflex flash itself in pre-cut out foam packaging, which is nice because it's not just bubble wrap or anything like that. This keeps it very secure, keeps it from moving around in shipping. No dents or dings. And another layer of foam on the bottom. That comes out, another layer of foam. So this thing's shipped very well, very safely. Nothing to worry about there. So we will just go ahead and put that back off to the side. And I might actually keep that box as a display piece. So getting into the flash itself. This one actually comes as a full flash unit. You can purchase them now. Not just empty shells, but Graflex Shop is now making the full internal blade, excuse me, they do have their own blade holder, but this is a bulb socket fully functional. You get the spring in the bottom, functional buttons, and mine does come with the little light bulb under the glass eye, and fully spring-loaded bulb contact. So this is a functioning flash gun as well. So that's really cool that they're offering that option, and they sent me this one for review purposes as the full unit. It's kind of what I wanted to see. That's what I was most interested in. So overall, you can see it has a beautiful finish on it. I'm not sure the light is capturing it properly. I've got fingerprints all over it. I've been handling this thing a lot since I received it almost a week ago. I know it's taken me a while to get this review out. As I said, I've been busy. But overall, the finish on this is just phenomenal. I know TGS was having problems. They had several delays. A lot to do with their plater, the company that was doing the plating for them, both with, I think, just estimates getting the pieces out as well as the quality, but they have since found a new plater that is a lot faster, and the quality of the work just speaks for itself. I mean, there is not a single ding in this thing. The edges are beautifully smooth. The inside finish is flawless. Around the glass eye and red button, I'm not sure, press areas, I guess. Like I said, it's 1 a.m. I'm tired. I can't think of the word at the moment. But some of the previous Generation 1 had sometimes around these areas would have just a few tiny little dimples or pock marks in them. But this is flawless. There's no discoloration, like thinning of plating around any of the cutouts. A lot of replicas can sometimes have that around the edges, can be kind of thin and can be kind of showing some of the other colors of the plating process. But this is just very nice, very smooth, very even all the way around, and the degree of brushing on the chrome. Let me just zoom in here so I don't have to keep bringing it up. If it'll focus. The brush finish on it is just beautiful. It's not a super brush, but it's not a pure chrome either. It is, in my mind, in my eye, it's the perfect combination, especially on the clamp, being the clamp is steel. The clamps on a lot of vintages are more shiny than the rest of it, and this also matches that beautifully. Again, due to the shine on camera with my lighting, it's difficult to see variations, but trust me, in person, the finish is fantastic. So, like all my reviews, I like to just start at the top and I'll just work my way down, going over the pros, the cons, talking about it, going in depth like I do. People seem to like it when I go really in depth with things. So we'll just start there, and I'll give my final verdict at the end of it. Okay, so starting at the emitter, we will look at the overall quality of the metal itself and the finish. And as I said a minute ago, the edge on this is perfectly smooth. There's no ridges, there's no cut marks, there's no anything. The inside finish is flawless. A lot of people had concerns and issues with the inside of the plating. It was kind of splotchy and didn't look that great. It didn't really bother me because you can't barely see it, but a lot of people took issue with it. But this has none of those problems on the inside. The finish is perfect. The shape of the emitter at the top has that nice squared look to it, which vintages do have. They're not perfectly rounded at the top. They do have kind of a flat spot. If we compare to my actual, let me zoom back out here, to my vintage. This is the only vintage I have on hand at the moment. This is my personal Empire Strikes Back. If you look, there is a distinct flat spot on the top, and if you compare that with the TGS, it is damn near identical. I mean, even the finish on it, the finish is near perfect. I mean, this obviously one is 70 years old, so there is more wear to it. The camera's not picking it up very well, but the finish on it is just fantastic. The shape of the emitter on the TGS, this one, the top being TGS, bottom being vintage, shape of the emitter is pretty spot on, but TGS nailed that with their Gen 1. They were one of the first ones to really nail the S-curve. Looks fantastic going into the Gen 2. They haven't made any changes to mess with that at all. Still a beautiful curve. The quality of the bunny ears seems to have improved. I think they increased the, not increased, but I think they changed the type of steel used to make the bunny ears. They are much stiffer. I know the Gen 1, if you bend the ears too tight, rather than the clamp down here, the ring opening, it would just bend the ears together. Up here would bend at these weaker spots, but you don't have that with this one. I'm applying quite a bit of force and they're not bending. They still stay true, and just the ring opens like it's supposed to. So that's a nice feature. The coloring of the bunny ears is nice. It's still that chrome. It's not as brushed as the rest of it, like it's supposed to be. You do get the threaded smooth rivet for the bunny ears. The vintages do have just the straight rivet, but again, I do like the threaded just because it makes it easier for a lot of people to remove and install than a punch rivet, because you kind of need a special tool to get in there. You need a long punch. It can be dangerous. You can end up scratching the front here as the pin comes out. You can end up scratching the back half trying to drive it out. Having a screw makes it much easier. You just very carefully with a pair of pliers get in there and just loosen it. I think it was the 89 Sabres that actually has the smooth head rivet, but they have a notch on the back of the screw, so you can get in there with a little screwdriver. That was a cool idea, because sometimes these smooth head screws can be kind of finicky to get out. So if at some point TGS were to switch over and include a little notch on the back of their screw, that would make it even better. But just the fact that it's a screw over a punch rivet, I'm already a fan. Inside the blade, I keep saying blade, just the bulb socket is top-notch quality. The plastic is sturdy. Like I said, I've had this apart. I'm not going to take it back apart for this review, but it is made of quality plastic. It's the perfect level of shine. They do offer two versions, I believe. They had it made in this, more of the shiny plastic, and they also have some that were made in a more flat plastic. If you're going for more of a old weathered kind of a barn find look, the flat black would look pretty good. It would be a lot easier to make look dusty and old if you were going for a static piece that was meant to look like it just came out of somebody's attic or just walked off the set of Dagobah or something where it's been in the mud. So, but the plastic here is very, very well done. All the brass pieces are the standard quality of TGS stuff. Very well done. No problems with it. The slide tab is a functional slide tab, but it does retain the same internal mechanism as when they were selling it just as an individual piece. So it does have the bent arm on the inside with the C-clip or actually E-clip holding it in, which I like rather than just a rivet. So when you go to remove it, it's much easier to remove and install than a vintage piece. So I'm still a big fan of the design they came up with for that. On the Gen 2, they have changed over to their new flat stainless steel slide tab as well as the beer tab. On the Gen 1, I have a Gen 1 here, they still had the old shiny chrome slide tab. I've replaced the beer tab on this, and I have a new slide tab to go on there. But they were still using the old shiny ones, and we pointed out that was we'd like to see a more flat finish, so they started offering flat finish ones, and now the new TGS Gen 2s come with flat finish already installed. So that's awesome, because that is accurate to a vintage. The brass pins, these ones came stepped. TGS does offer stepped and smooth for early Fulmer types. You can get either or. Just make sure you note which one you want in your order, and I'm sure they'll be happy to accommodate your preferred style. Same with the glass eye. This is a later Graflex ink style glass eye, where it's the much more chromed and rounded, but they also offer the early Fulmer stainless flat gray with the more angular profile. But this glass eye is very accurate. It looks good. It's nice and clear. I believe it might actually be glass. I'm not positive as to that. I haven't tested that myself. The red button is standard TGS red button. Good quality. It's not to the same degree of finite perfect replication as the Maker Prop Studio. I don't think anyone will ever be able to beat the Maker Prop Studio in terms of accuracy when it comes to the red button. That thing is just phenomenal. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with this red button. It's not inaccurate, it's just not as accurate. But it is a more true replica of the functional button, whereas on the inside it actually has the metal plunger that vintages have, whereas the Maker Prop Studio has just the plunger to be used as a saber. And one other thing is, while I'm in here, is the TGS does come with the smooth steel pins, just like a vintage, whereas other replicas have pretty much the same pins for the sync pins, where they're just brass and they're hex heads. This one actually has the accurate square head steel pins, which is a really cool detail. They didn't have to go that far with it, especially since most people either remove the bulb socket or the button's going to be on there anyway. So that wasn't even a feature that they had to have, but they included it anyway, and that's, I don't know, to me that's just a really cool little thing for people that know that it should be there. Alright, so moving down, we get to, here, I'll open it up here and put that off to the side. And now, as I said, unlike some replicas and even some of the TGS Gen 1s, you had some lighter plating around the edges where you could see some of the gold of either the brass showing through, and these are nickel plated brass, just like a vintage. Just like most replicas out there, Maker Prop Studio being the only one that's stainless. Oh, I said nickel plated brass, didn't I? I meant chrome plated brass, because the vintages were chrome, and all of the TGS replicas always have been chrome and always will be chrome. A lot of people, myself included, at one point thought that they were nickel, but it's not. It's brushed chrome. But on these replicas, there is no sign, with this new plating company, there is no sign of discoloration around any of the edges. It's all super clean, super perfect. On the inside, it's not splotchy at all. You don't get the perfect finish like on the outside, but you didn't get that with a vintage. The inside is never going to be as good as the outside. Vintages are never like that, so this is perfectly accurate. But like I said, under here where you do see it, it's a beautiful finish, so there's nothing to worry about there. It's nice and sturdy. As far as the ears go for the clamp lock, there's nothing to worry about with bending or extra stress being applied to those that they would ever distort. They're nice and sturdy. Put that off to the side, and let's just look at the clamp for a second, because this clamp is gorgeous. It is an amazing piece. They fixed the problems with the sidebars that they were having. The flare for the clamp card is a nice symmetrical flare, not that they ever had any problems with that. The clamp lever is a beautiful brushed finish. A lot of replicas have these levers are just far too shiny, and they're just, you know, they don't look that great. But this is a beautiful finish. It's got the accurate angle to it. Unlike the TGS Gen 1s, where they did have a problem with the brushing effect on the clamps being more so in the middle and then around the clamp bars, they were very chrome. These are perfectly even all the way around, where the finish is just fantastic. The Graflex stamping is still in line. If I use the card here, TGS really went out of their way with the Gen 1 to make sure that the edge of the G lines up with the notch holes, as well as the edge of the X, which is accurate to a vintage. They're one of the first ones to really nail the stamping spacing, and it's a beautiful stamping, nice and deep pressed. No paint on these ones. I know some of the Romans came with paint. Both are accurate. Just depends on which vintage you pick up. Some had paint in them, some didn't. But apart from the finish on these clamps and the fit is fantastic. There's no binding. There's no anything to worry about. The new thing, one of the key features of this clamp are the clamp lines. And let me see if I can get focused on there. These are no longer etched, laser etched lines. These are stamped lines, just like the logo. And these are perfect. They match a vintage perfectly. They have completely squared ends. They're the same even depth all the way around. And they're just perfect. TGS really nailed it with this one. I mean, just everything about it. It's funny to be able to, you know, look at something like this, just a piece of metal, and say that it's a beautiful piece, but it really is. I mean, when you think about just the number of details that goes into just something like this, that they got it so well done is just awesome. Very happy with that clamp. Moving on to the lower, again, no discoloration around any of the edges. The finish on some of their Gen 1s and some of the other replicas out there, you get kind of a discoloration between uppers and lowers if they're plated at different times. If for some reason the plating stuck differently, you would get a different finish and it would look kind of off. But the plating from upper and lower is identical. The brush effect is identical, so they just go together perfectly. Now, a lot of people were concerned that this being so close to a vintage, that people would be trying to sell them off online as vintages, and there'd be no way to tell. So what they did was they took and they put a laser etch right at the bottom just says TGS. There is no way to really tell from pictures on the top half, but the threaded bunny ear screw, the assembly of the slide switch, and I forget what the other one was. I know there was a third tail for the top. Oh, the bunny, the beer tab rivet is actually threaded, and it's not a screw. I mean, it's not a rivet. So there are 3 tails for that, but of course, looking at it in pictures, there's no way to know that. So that can be kind of dangerous. But I think the bulb socket will give it away, because you'll never find a vintage one that is that clean. But going back to the lower, you do get the nice laser etch on the inside. So you could always ask the person selling it to take a picture of the inside, and if it says TGS, you know it's a replica. But like I said, the overall finish of it is flawless, no problems, perfect color. The big thing with the lower for me is, well, there's a couple of them. One being the stamping. They brought the stamp further away from the edges, like a lot of the early foamers did. And this does have the early foamer, the Rochester, New York patentless foamer Graflex stamp, which a lot of people like because it's the only one that we know for sure was used, at least in part of filming, for The Empire Strikes Back, when you have that Wampa Cave scene and you can just barely make out the word new when you freeze frame it. You can kind of see the ER in the new with the kobold sitting about like here. But they did bring it in, and they also changed the depth of the stamp, and they made it much thinner, and it's just a beautiful stamping. So combined with the change in diameter and the thinner stamp, it resembles a vintage so much. Not to mention the finish on it. A lot of the TGS Gen 1s, the Romans, many replicas that came out had very shiny pommels, and they were almost perfectly chrome, or somebody, before they shipped them out, went over them with Scotch-Brite to kind of scuff them up a little bit, but it was still pretty shiny. These bottom end caps match the rest of the finish to a T. I mean, they are perfect. You can tell that that's not an ounce of chrome, like bare chrome left. The finish on it is just great. And one of the other things that I like, that is a very subtle touch, but I really, really like, is the fact that if I can get this to focus, you can see the edge. You can see the lip between this bottom plate and this rolled edge. You can see the gap. You can kind of get it with your fingernail. And that's a really cool thing that vintage Graflex have. If we look at my vintage ESB here, and it's hard to tell because the cobalt is in the way, but as you can see, it does have the thinner stamping. This is a Graflex ink bottom. I do not have a Wampa Cave alignment lower. It'd be cool if I did, but I'm not overly concerned with it. But you have the thin stamping, you have the nice brushed finish on it, and you have you can tell that the bottom piece, the bottom actual pommel, is not the same piece, that it was a separate piece and they just rolled the edge over it, and you can tell that. And it's the same on this TGS, and this is the first replica that I've really seen do that, and it's an amazing little detail that I don't think a lot of people would pick up on unless you really knew what you were looking for. But it's subtle, and I love it. If you look at the TGS Gen 1, if I can get that out of the way and get this to focus, it doesn't have that. You can definitely tell that this was just a single piece. that was just, whoops, I'm off camera. This was just kind of a single piece. I don't know how these were made, but you can tell that this was just kind of a single piece that was then kind of like pressed in to imitate the roll on the edge. And you can also see the wider stamping, not just in terms of the diameter size, but in terms of the lettering, how it's much more fat, and it looks like the stamper went in more to spread out the width of the lettering. If you compare the two lowers, I mean, we'll kind of line these up so the stamping's in similar places. So there we go. You can see there's just a big difference in the quality of the stamp, and just the whole end cap in general. And the new one is just phenomenal. I can't find any flaws with this lower at all, and it's just an amazing replica. I love it. Alright, so we have this all back together, and overall there really isn't any downsides to this replica. I mean, I know I always say that I'm going to go over the pros and the cons. I've had this for about a week. I've taken it apart. I've looked at the insides, the outsides. I've compared it to my vintage. I've compared it to other vintages that I've worked on. I've compared it to every replica that I have. I've done as in-depth and as thorough look at this thing as I can do, and I honestly can't find really any severe cons with it. I mean, I've taken you through from top to bottom, and this thing is virtually flawless. From the plating to the stamps, for both the clamp and the pommel, to the design, to the included internal bulb assembly, if you choose to get one. Of course, that will be an option. That they don't all come with that. That will be a small additional price if you want to, and it would be, for people that want to use them as a static piece. If you're going to make this into a saber, it's not really worth it to get the whole thing. You can buy the individual parts and then just get the empty shell. But if you want this as a static piece where you just slap grips on it, or if you want to use this as a functioning flash handle on a camera, you can do that too. This is fully functioning. You put some batteries in it, you're good to go. So I really like the fact that this is a functioning flash, but I can't find any real flaws with it. They took all of the criticism that they received from the Gen 1, and I can't even say, when I say all the criticisms, that makes it sound like it was the Gen 1 was a travesty, and it was we don't speak of the Gen 1. No, the Gen 1 was a great replica. I have it as my A New Hope, and it's a great replica. There's a few things that I've upgraded in time, such as the beer tab. I will replace the slide switch. But overall, the Gen 1 was a great replica. But the few things that they did have incorrect or not as accurate as they could be, they took to heart, they listened to the community, and they took the steps to improve them. And they've given us the replica that I think that we've all been waiting for, and that we've all wanted for a long time. They did keep pushing some of their release dates back time and time again, but when you look at why that happens, I mean, when companies do that, it's like I'm an avid video game player, and when a video game company pushes their release dates back, it's to make the game more polished. It's to give you a better product in the long run. It's because the product's not ready, and if they were to release it now, even though you really want to play it right now, it wouldn't be as good as if you wait. And the same thing goes for this. If they had released it months ago, we wouldn't have this replica. We would have one
with subpar plating. We would have one with maybe a few other issues they were trying to get worked out. But in my mind, the wait was totally worth it because this is by far the best replica that we've seen to date. The Romans Gen 2, also a phenomenal option. Again, with Romans Gen 2, he really stepped it up from the Gen 1, fixed a lot of issues. I don't feel that the pommel cap stamping is quite as good on the Gen 2, and some of the Gen 2s for Romans can still have some plating issues here and there, but overall, that's a great replica. The Maker Prop Studios, the stainless steel version, is a phenomenal replica. I love that there's so many companies out there that are making quality replicas. We've been looking for so long, and there's everyone that makes them is really stepping up to the plate now, and that's fantastic. And this is no exception. Having handled all of the replicas, having reviewed all of the replicas, I can honestly say that this one, as it stands right now, as this one in my hand, is my personal favorite just because they nailed every detail. Certain Graflex replicas, one will nail one area more than another. Some have some flaws in some places, while they have strengths in other areas. This one is just all over the board. They really nailed it. As I said, the only thing that one of the other replicas does better is the red button, and that's Maker Prop Studios. But like I said, this isn't a bad button. It's not like, oh my god, this is horribly inaccurate and it should be killed with fire. No, this is a fantastic replica all the way around. The bunny ears are the right height, the right finish, clamp, stamping, finish, plating, everything is just as close, I think, as we're ever going to get it. I honestly, like I said, I don't have any cons for this. I can't think of anything that should be changed to make it more accurate because they really nailed it. So my final verdict for this one is I gotta give them a 10 out of 10. It feels weird to do it because a 10 out of 10 says that it's absolutely perfect, and that just, I don't know, it just feels weird in my mind to say something is perfect because I'm a believer that nothing is. But being that I can't really find anything that I would change, I gotta give it a 10. It's a beautiful piece. The price is fantastic. I know they said once the pre-orders are out, if you want to pick one up, they are going up a little bit in price to cover some of the tooling changes and things like that. But I mean, even if they went up to $250, $275 for what you're getting, that is a fantastic price. I mean, this is hands down one of the possibly the best replica on the market right now. Like I said, other replicas are just as great. It depends on where you are and who you decide to go with. It's completely your choice. But this is just a phenomenal replica. And yeah, I feel like I'm rambling, so I guess I'm going to cut it off. It's about 2 a.m. now, so I really need to get some sleep. So I hope this review has been insightful to those looking at getting a replica, those who have been following all of my other reviews, and to those just curious about how the weight has stacked up for this new TGS Gen 2. And in my mind, it was totally worth it because this is a fantastic piece. I don't know what I'm going to do with this yet. I might make this my A New Hope, and I might sell off my Gen 1. And I have a Maker Prop Studios that I'm going to turn into my new The Force Awakens, so I might sell that off too. But yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with this yet because it's just a fantastic piece, and I want it to go towards something worthy of what this replica is. So stay tuned for that. I might do a video on that as well. But for now, Thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking with me through all these reviews and all these different videos. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and be sure to follow me on Facebook at eastcoastsabers.com, and feel free to join the Graflex Addict support group on Facebook. Lots of great Graflex enthusiasts there. Whether you're looking for advice, whether you're looking for help with a build, anything, it's a great place, great people. Be sure to stop by. But for now, I will just say thank you, and may the force be with you.